I'm Jacob Pecenka. I am a master's student at South Dakota State University in Brookings, South Dakota, and my research is focused on these guys, dung beetles. So my project is looking at the role that dung beetles play in pasture ecosystems all over South Dakota. There's cattle ranches and operations, and I want to look at how some of those management practices that apply to those cattle ranches will affect how healthy and happy dung beetle populations are and how much they're doing their job out in the pasture. I, for my research, have 10 different ranching operations, all varying in size and the type of cattle in there and the management practices such as grazing intensity and uses of parasiticides like ivermectin. So I got a couple metrics to try to really get a feel of what kind of dung beetles are out there, what different species are out there, and how many are out there. I will take what's called a soil core. I use an instrument to cut a hole on top of a dung pat that's been out there for a day or two, and I put that core in a bag, and that'll later be analyzed, and we'll be able to see what kind of representation of dung beetles and other dung arthropods are out there. So another metric that we use to collect dung beetles is bucket traps, where dung beetles, they're seeking out the dung with their sense of smell, and so we bait them with a sample of cow dung, and the dung beetles will be attracted to it, fly to it, and fall into the bucket where it's filled with soapy water that the dung beetles will fall into, and we can collect them. Once they've been collected, the cores will come back and we will put them in what's called a Berlese funnel, which is a really unique way to get rid of soil insects, or in this case dung and soil insects. An intense light is shown on top of that dung core, and the insects will try to get away from that intense heat and go through a mesh screen at the bottom into a collection vial of ethanol, where they will later be looked under the microscope and try to give it a species name, so I can get an idea of how many different insect samples of each species there are, or how many different species are out there. When I was thinking about projects that I want to do, I knew I wanted to be insect focused. That's been a really big interest of mine, and there's a lot of people studying the agricultural side of crop production and insect pests and crops, but there's really not a lot known about dung beetles and the insects that are used to recycle dung, and it's such an important aspect out in the field, because without that dung recycling, the paths would just stay out there, and then you'd have a crust of dung on your field and nowhere for the cows to forage, and land would be useless. So these dung beetles are super important, and for all those benefits they have, they're really not well understood, especially in this part of the country, and I really wanted to put a focus on that and maybe open up some doors to a better understanding of what these guys are doing out there.